Well, thank you for staying with us. President Bola Tinubu's recent approval of 50% discount for road travelers during the Yuletide season sparked widespread anticipation and discussion across the nation. This bold initiative is no significant measure, is expected to impact on travel plans of millions of Nigerians who may want to take advantage of this gesture. Well, let's get the potential, or look at the potential effect on travel, the economy, daily lives of Nigerians as government intensifies efforts to strengthen the country's energy security with the adoption of CNG vehicles. I'm being joined live in the studio, public and policy affairs analyst, Mr. Bola Olojede. Thank you so much. Compliments of the season again.
Yeah, same to you. Nice to be here again.
Yeah, let's start the conversation around policy change that has been on now. We see government so focusing more on CNG-powered vehicles and electric vehicles. We hear the NADDC talking about how we must push this to move on. But what do you really think about this, and what impact do you see it having on the transport sector, the fallout of subsidy removal?
It's a very important step that government must follow through. Of course, it will require a lot of investment because the infrastructure is not exactly there. The nation has been wired to use PMS and AGO and all the rest, and that also dictated how we have invested in filling stations, in facilities for AGO and the rest of it. So adopting a new energy source required that we also make necessary investment in infrastructure to support that adoption. So from issues around, if I convert my engine today to a CNG engine, where will I get the CNG? So the people who provide the CNG and all the rest of it, it requires a lot of investment. However, to jumpstart adoption is the issue of government itself investing, which is where all this issue of 1,000 CNG buses and the rest of it comes in. If government invests, it will provide its own infrastructure for its own buses, and it will encourage the private sector to also begin to invest in that space. Don't forget that we even went all the way to world platforms where we mentioned this, I think in COP28.
Yes.
It was one of the things that the president committed to. So it is important that we see it through from the perspective of the fact that it enables the adoption of an alternative energy which is said to be cheaper. And also, there is an anticipation from the people. They're saying, look, the subsidy regime, the subsidy removal issue has made cost of PMS to be unbearable. CNG might just be that soft landing that the people are waiting for. So government must see it.
These are electric vehicles there now, the pictures we have live there, and just batteries. But some will talk about infrastructure.
Correct.
Where do we start having the charging points, and do we have electricity to power all of this? That's also something. What do you think about infrastructure aspect?
It is very necessary. Without the infrastructure, if I don't know where I'm going to get my next recharge for CNG or for electricity or for electric cars, then why will I get an electric car? But you see, the infrastructure for PMS is all over the place. Everywhere you turn, there's a filling station. Of course, it took us years to get to where we are with that. But the primary issue is that we must invest in the infrastructure that will support the adoption of both electric cars and the CNG powered vehicles as well. CNG is not new to the industries. A lot of those manufacturers are already used to CNG. They have CNG generators. They power some of their plants with CNG and all the rest of it. But for the rest of us who are PMS consumers and we're just being introduced to CNG, we need those assurances that we'll be able to access that energy source.
Let's now go to the 50% discount on transport fare. And when this popped up and news was everywhere, everyone was like, wow, this is Christmas gift for Nigerians. Of course, Christmas and New Year gift. First, what was your reaction to that? Let me start that way.
To be honest, my first reaction was that I hope that government has worked this out because it requires a certain level of engagement with the structured transport system to be able to make it a great success. So initially, when it was announced, I think only 5 companies were mentioned. I remember GIGM, maybe Chisco, if about 5 of them. Maybe that has been expanded, I guess. You see, it's a form of intervention. It has been done before. It's not different from what Lagos State did with BRT when the subsidy was removed and said, oh, you guys charge 50% or charge 75%. That's exactly what it was. You know, and you can only have that kind of an intervention with the structured organizations within the transport system, which is why we had choices of certain transport companies. But the real effectiveness will require that reporters go visit all those places and assure the people that it is not just, you know, voicemail like some people will say on the streets, but it is actually happening. That is very important. I've not seen many media houses in those places doing a live reportage of what was going on at those places.
Well, I think we went to the rail for the rail.
We went for the rail. Okay, you did for the rail. It would be nice to also go visit for the parks. Yes, because a lot more people actually go to the parks.
Yeah.
Interestingly, most of these organizations, they have the basis for us to determine how many people would want this scheme to benefit, because they've been doing this forever. Some of those transport companies have been around for 2 decades. So they have records. They can tell you how many people they carried over the last 5 years, every December. And you can use that to project how many we're going to carry this year. And if you want to do an intervention, that forms a good basis to say, okay, you carry them at this, because at the end of the day, it's some form of subsidy or intervention by the government. Then you're able to have a structured arrangement around this.
It is. I'm still going to take you up on that. But if it's properly done, properly administered,
yes.
What kind of impact do you think it will have? Millions of Nigerians travel yearly.
Exactly. It means that a lot of people who travel will be able to travel. And when they do that, because it also has implications for economic activities. True. So you see a community that is relatively quiet with maybe 2,000 people. Suddenly that community receives an additional 4,000. It's about 30 times its initial population. So the economic activities that will go around that season helps those communities. And a lot of it happens, especially in the southeastern part of Nigeria, where people do a lot of travels to that part. So it has an economic implication for those societies where people are moving to. And when they are moving, they also move with a lot of things. I know people even go as far as going along with generators, with all sorts of things to their villages. So there's a social side, which is the fact that I love to visit my community in December. True. And I'm able to do that. Good. Then there's the economic part that a quiet community of 2,000 people suddenly has 6,000 or 10,000 people in that same community. It's a lot of it.
Hotels, everywhere.
Hotels are going to be busy. You know, people who sell things are going to sell. You're selling chicken. Whatever you're selling, demand will be high. So economic activities generally will be high. And then, of course, the social part of it, which is I'm able to see my grandfather, my grandmother. I visited our farm. I slept in our yard. You know, those are little things, but they matter.
The food in the farm and all of that.
You know, fresh. You even go to the community and have fresh air under the tree. Yeah, unlike what you have in a busy society like Lagos.
I agree. I was telling someone, I said, Hamatan in Lagos, by the time we get to January, maybe 2-3 days in January, it just, all of a sudden, it just goes off and
it disappears. But if you go to the villages now, and you see what is blowing.
You like, you don't need AC to Well, let's go back to one very important point you raised. Now, the president is trying to do all of this to support the fallout of subsidy removal, which is biting hard, and we all know. And government doesn't have so much money. We see what's happening with debt. States and local governments are also getting more money.
Correct.
At this time.
Correct.
So I'm thinking, how can they also help complement? Lagos, like we mentioned, has cut price of BRT and all of that. What more kind of interventions are you expecting? moving forward? I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
You see, there was an intervention that the Ogun State government mentioned. Whether he will go through with it or whether he's actively working on it is another thing entirely. And what it said in the wake of the mentioning of CNG as an alternative power source is that he was going to provide infrastructure for CNG at the stations, at the bus stops. That was what the Ogun State government mentioned. Initiatives like that, if carried through, will actually help to jumpstart. We'll be talking about the fact that without infrastructure, you won't even be able to launch fully into the adoption. So if there is a state government, what I expect the state government to also do to support the federal government is to also be willing to pitch in on the issue of infrastructure for the adoption. They can start by getting some of those buses themselves, not just rely on federal government is saying, I'm getting CNG buses. You also get CNG buses within your state and provide infrastructure for those CNG buses that is your state. That way, you're jump-starting something that the private sector can leverage and say, oh, if I say these people, they're serious.
Yes.
Let's also see what is possible in that space. And it will help to gravitate people towards this alternative source of energy, which promises to soften the problem created by subsidy removal, by PMS subsidy removal.
Very, 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 very big one. Well, we have to move on and look at policy instituted by President Bola Tinubu. I know we've had you in to talk about this, and one major one is investment.
Okay.
Investment drive. The president keeps saying it. Nigeria is open for investment. If you have any problem, come to me. If you cannot reach me, make sure you move. He just wants it to be seamless.
Yeah.
And that seems like the language that investors would like to hear.
Correct.
At this time. So as we move on in 2024, let me ask the question this way, Mr. Lojedi. What sort of conversations do you expect, both from the Ministry of Trade and Investment, from Ministry of Finance, and of course, Coordinating Ministry of the Economy? You know, what sort of conversation are we expecting to make this become Naira and Kobo?
Well, there are a few things that will bring reassurance into the investment space.
True.
One of it, one very important one, is the issue of the stability of the Naira. Yeah. I know that the CBN now is doing a lot in that direction. We need to have to sustain that in a disciplined way. There are a few things that I saw very recently. There was a news item regarding one of the banks. And the way it was reported, I was asking myself, why will even CBN allow a news like this to be in the media? Because it is not good for that segment. And such kind of news are still not out of the space. There are so many others. So the CBN must be the one at the driver's seat, communicating the right things to Nigerians and to the people out there. So reports saying something about, oh, some banks are having problems, those are not the kind of... Before that kind of a reportage will hit the headlines, there has to be an engagement where facts and figures are provided to the media to say, look, we have no problem here. But I don't think we're managing that well enough. But more importantly, issues around the sustained stability of the Naira. I'll give you something. Yeah. The last time I checked my stock account, I found out that one of the banks where I had stock, within 5 months, had 97% gain. And I asked myself, oh, this is beautiful. Yeah. Then somebody said, convert that to dollars. Let's see how much it was, when at the beginning and how much it is now in dollars. And you could see that a lot of that money could have been eroded by the foreign exchange problem. Yeah. Well, I can argue and say most of my expenses are not in foreign exchange, so I don't really care. I've made, but you see, that will not be the same from someone who is coming from outside to come and invest. He wants the stability because eventually he wants to be able to repatriate some of those profits. And in order to repatriate that, there must be something about FX supply, FX stability, FX availability, all those things must be solved. So it's one area that will help to further the initiatives of the president along the line of attracting investment.
Very interesting stuff. Time is fast spent. Purchasing power seems to be low. People think that, people say that they're not buying like they used to buy. I want us to end on that lighter note this season, because everyone is saying, but I beg to argue. I was telling someone, most places I've visited, always full to the brim. And people keep saying that, what do you think about people's purchasing power and the season?
Maybe you should go to the clubs in the evening, and then you start asking yourself, okay, so what's all this complaining?
I tell you.
You know,
a
director of mine was saying, look, the flights to the UK are still filled.
Booked, all booked, man.
You know, so Nigeria is a very interesting place, but that doesn't take away the fact that things are hard for a stratum of the market, and we must be able to see how we can pull up that stratum of the market.
True. Yes, so let's see how all of this plays out, and we start to see the positives of all of these decisions that have been taken in 2023. We'll keep a tab and keep following up and having all those discussions. I must thank you so much again, Mr. Gbola Olojede, Public Affairs and Policy Analyst. Thank you so much, and I wish you a happy New Year in advance. Let me get a handshake with you. Thank you so much.
Wish you a good one.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll look at the market figures. Don't go away.